Please join me in a word of prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us together on this beautiful winter morning in order to celebrate the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Keep our hearts and minds open to what Dr. King stood for and the message this morning. Amen.
Thank you very much. Captain Dale Perry. I think what a special honor for her to be our battalion commander. She's the third female in the history of Wentworth to hold that post, and I know she's going to do a great job this semester. So, hey, thank you very much. Well, it's a special day today. We have a chance to honor and remember Dr. Martin Luther King. It's good to see all of you here. I know we have the cadets. It's great to see you all here. We have some of our faculty and staff here, some visitors, our study group from Brazil. Always glad to have you all with us. Several alumni. I know Sam Crook is here, excuse me. Joe Parman from the Lexington News. And very special to see the First Lady of Wentworth, Norma Mary. Norma, it's always good to see you on campus. We miss you. It's not the same without you this year. We know you're enjoying your retirement. It's very good to see you today. Well, today we take a few minutes to honor and remember Dr. Martin Luther King. And what a hero Dr. Martin Luther King was. What an impact he had on our lives today. You know, and during the course of the year, on Veterans Day, we take time to honor different veterans. Those veterans that lost their lives in service to their country. Dr. King, I don't believe, was a veteran in terms of military service, but I think you can truly call him a veteran. He's a man who fought for what he believed in and ultimately gave his life for that cause. And because of his many givings and many things that he did down through the years, our country's got much better than it was. We've come a long way in terms of civil rights and equality for all. So we certainly praise him. One of the highlights of Dr. King's career was the speech that he gave on August 28, 1963. It's called the I Have a Dream speech. And at that time, there was a Freedom March on Washington in 1963. 250,000 people were involved in that march. And it's on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. The city was packed. And Dr. King gave his famous I Have a Dream speech. He started out talking about the Emancipation Proclamation. But then in the middle of the speech, he changed. I Have a Dream was an ad lib. It was not part of his planned speech. But he felt like, here's something I need to say. It was probably maybe the highlight of his career, probably the most important speech he ever gave. It's one of the most important speeches in American history. And the next year, Dr. King was awarded the Nobel Prize. So we thought today we would read the I Have a Dream speech, and I appreciate 3 of our cadets doing that for us. First of all, Captain Eric Warren, who's the company commander of Alpha Company, and then Captain Max Flores, who's the company commander of Delta Company, and then Ben Monaghan, who is the company commander of Headquarters Company. They will read the I Have a Dream speech.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 5 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon of light to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. So we have come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note, insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring the sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. So we have come to cash this check, a check that will give us, upon demand, the riches of freedom and security of justice. we have also come to this hollow spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. Those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will not be content with have a rude awakening and the nation returns to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges.
But there is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads to the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forward conduct ourselves, our struggle, on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to distrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny, and they have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone, and as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is a victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of highways and hotels of cities. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is smaller ghetto to larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by signs stating for whites only. We cannot be satisfied as long as a Negro in Mississippi cannot vote, a Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, no. We are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh and narrow from jails. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by storms of persecution and staggered by winds of lawless police brutality. You have been veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemption. Go back to Mississippi, go back to Alabama, go back to South Carolina, go back to Georgia, go back to Louisiana, go back to the slums and the ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It's a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this situation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and sons of former slaveholders will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, that one day, right down in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I will go back to the south with. With this faith, we'll be able to hew out of mountains of despair, a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jingling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day when all of our God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the high-hanging Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from the Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And when this happens, and we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, we will join hands in singing the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Captain Warren, Captain Flores, Captain Mooney, and thank you all very much. That's not easy to stand up and read that. You guys did a great job, so we certainly appreciate it. Yes, we're very honored today to have a special guest as our speaker, a gentleman that has had a very distinguished career. He's right in the middle of his career right now and has done so many outstanding things. I could call him a lot of things. I could call him Professor Milton Fowler because he's taught classes at UMKC for 22 years in the medical school. He's been a professor there. He also earned his MBA degree in business. I could also call him Colonel Milton Fowler because he served 6 years in the United States Army. He had tours in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, Germany, Saudi Arabia. At the present time, he's a lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserves in Omaha, Nebraska. I think the title you know him most by, though, is Dr. Milton Fowler. And what a distinguished career he's had as a doctor. Dr. Milton Fowler has practiced at Children's Mercy Hospital in Kansas City for 22 years. He's been a staff physician during that time. He was the director or president of the medical staff, the chief of staff. He also has been he's a division director at the current time for the emergency medicine department. He's also senior medical director of outreach and regional practices, at Children's Mercy Hospital. I don't think any of you have had a chance to go to Children's Mercy. I know some of you probably have. What an outstanding hospital. And I don't know any hospital in the United States that does any better job than Children's Mercy as far as meeting the needs of young people and taking care of their families as well as the young people who need medical attention. And Dr. Fowler's been a leader in that hospital for so many years. But I think the thing we're most proud of, we call him Wentworth alumnus, Dr. Milton Fowler. Dr. Milton Fowler graduated from Wentworth in 1980. He came here for 2 years of college. He studied mainly biology and chemistry, of course, going into the medical profession. He came here on an ROTC scholarship. He was the commander of the Wentworth Honor Guard. He also was a very good athlete. He was a junior college basketball player, a baseball player, and also a tennis player. I believe he was an all-conference basketball player at the time he was here. He also was a member of Phi Theta Kappa. He received the George Petro Award the Honor Guard Award when he graduated. He received a VFW award. He also received considered a distinguished military graduate, and he was commissioned as a second lieutenant upon graduation. So he had a great career here in Wentworth. He's also received several awards. He was selected to the Board of Directors of Children's Mercy Hospital. He received a Black Achievers Award in Kansas City in 2012, and just last year he received a Leadership Award from the Division of Pediatrics. A couple of things, if you don't remember anything else about Dr. Fowler, and I'll sit down and let him talk. I want you to remember two things about him. He sat in the same seat you're sitting in right now. He was a cadet here for 2 years. Probably sat in this same chapel. Probably sat in many of these same type of activities, ceremonies that you're sitting in today. That's the first thing I want you to remember. Just a cadet that came here and made it big. The second thing I want you to remember is he drank the water here at Wentworth. And by drank the water, I mean he bought into Wentworth. He bought into the things, many things that you all are doing, many things that maybe you don't like every day, of getting out of bed and being disciplined and doing some of the things that you have to do. He bought into many of those things, and that's one of the big reasons why he is successful as he is today. So without further ado, it's my honor to introduce our speaker for today, Dr. MLK Fowler.
Good morning. I think all of those accolades are nice to hear, but I'm a father of 3, and that's what most thing that I live for. And I'm also a grandfather of 3, so that just means I'm old when it comes to it. But it is so good to be back here at Wentworth, to be able to see the Corps of Cadets that I'm looking at today, to be able to speak on this day about Martin Luther King, how he's influenced myself, others, and how some of his philosophies and words that he's taught and his speeches that he's given has radiated change within America and continues throughout the day. Joe asked me last year to be part of this program, and for scheduling conflicts, as I wasn't able to honor that, but I said, keep me in mind the following year. And sure enough, Joe called and was able to allow me to come back and to present to you all. He also gave me permission to reminisce just for a little bit about my time at Wentworth, because as an alumnus and having been sitting in your seats, I remember the alumni coming back and talking about old times. And, I've gotten to this point now that it's special and it's important to do. So bear with me for a little bit, but before I do that, I do want to thank the administrators, the board of directors. I actually had a nice little letter from the board of directors to thank you for coming. And then also the cadets. It's a pleasure to be here to look at the cadet corps that's changed dramatically since the time that I was here. I remember celebrating our 100th year, Wentworth's 100th year anniversary at that time of existence, which happened to be my 20th year of existence on this earth. So we celebrated the same September 16th back there in 1980. I remember the Honor Guard. I'm not for sure if the Honor Guard is still in existence, but we had a really good drill team that for many years just did not beat our arch rival Kemper, who is again no longer in existence, but that was a very huge event for us to be able to overtake them in the Missouri Military Academy in the drill meet competition. So I do remember that. I remember walking the walls as a rat. I remember having to say the Rat's Creed. I imagine that Rat's Creed, if it's still in existence, had to be modified because most of it was based on our arch enemy Kemper. Something like I sir, am sir, a sir, rat sir, I sir, am sir, higher sir, then sir, lower sir, then sir, a sir, snake sir, belly sir, but high then a sir, Kemper sir, Comer sir. Something like that. So if there is some, as I walk around for lunch, if there is a Rat Creed, I'd appreciate one of you guys coming up to me and maybe give me a refresher on that. One of the things that I noticed is the presence of women in the Cadet Corps. We did not have that when I was here. I am so pleased to see that Wentworth has evolved to include women to its Cadet Corps, even to its highest rank within the Cadet Corps itself, and that is quite exciting for me to see. And the fact also that she's an African American. But I say that because as I go into my presentation, just like Dr. King, I was born and raised in the 60s and 70s. My grandfather was an African Methodist minister. So I remember in church services listening to him and how the ministry in that time was leading change. And this is in Omaha, Nebraska. But being a child, not understanding, there were a lot of things that went on. But now as I reflect back on, I can see how things were back then. And I'm glad that things have changed, but as you'll see, some things have remained the same. But my hope is that we don't look at individuals, just like Dr. King, as to all of the little titles that everyone gets. Again, I think it should be based on the merit of who you are and how well you're able to contribute to the American society in your own life and being successful at that. So with that said, the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday aims to celebrate the life and legacy of a man who brought hope and healing to America. You do not need to be an American in order to appreciate his teachings that demonstrated and taught us through his examples the values of courage, truth, justice, compassion, dignity, humility, and service. And those are the points that we'll talk about. These points embodied and ultimately defined Dr. King's character and empowered his leadership. And when we talk about leadership, all of you, especially in a forum like this, there's all type of leaders that we have and that you will experience and see throughout your life. Being a leader is a position of authority. But do all true leaders know how to lead? It's very important to know that a true leader is someone who radiates the ability for others to follow without question. And if they do question, they're able to provide an answer as to why we're doing things. But after that question has been answered, the ability to move them to do things with potential consequences, and those consequences indeed could be loss of life. So a true leader is someone who's able to motivate that type of response from individuals and groups. And that's indeed what Dr. King had. On this holiday, we commemorate the universal, unconditional love, forgiveness, and nonviolence that empowered this remarkable man. Now, he wasn't a perfect man. No human is. He had his flaws, and there were things that he was ashamed of doing. But we're not here to look upon that. We're looking at the good that he brought to America. But it's interesting that today we still live in a country with injustice, economic divide, wars based on religious differences, discrimination and denial of just basic human rights. If you look at the newspapers and the events of today, they're still going on. And that's discouraging after 50 years. So as much as things have changed, they remain the same. We must get to the point where all lives matter and all hands of all colors are on deck in order to produce sustainable change. But today, let us commemorate Dr. King's inspiring words because his voice and his vision filled a great void in our nation during that time and is relevant even in today's life. We all should have a collective longing to become a country that truly lived by his noblest principles. He challenged the principles of our founding fathers that articulated them in the Constitution, and he put forth these words into action steps in order to get certain rights for all Americans, but especially the African American community. Yet Dr. King knew that it wasn't enough just to talk the talk, that you need to be able to walk the walk, and you've heard that phrase, but indeed, he envisioned that and he did that in order to be credible or considered credible. And so we commemorate on this holiday the man of action who put his life on the line for freedom and justice every day. The man who braved threats and jails and beatings and would ultimately again pay the highest price to make democracy a reality for all Americans. The King holiday honors the life and contributions of America's greatest champion of racial justice and equality. The leader who not only dreamed of a colorblind society, but who also led a movement that achieved historic reform to help make it a reality. On this day, we commemorate Dr. King's dream of a vibrant, multiracial nation, united in justice, peace, and reconciliation. A nation that has placed at the table for every children and have room in the end for every child. We are called on his birthday, not merely to honor, but to celebrate the values of equity, equality, tolerance, interracial sister and brotherhood. He so compellingly expresses his great dream for America. In this day of interracial and intercultural cooperation and sharing, no other day of the year brings so many people from different cultural backgrounds together in such a vibrant spirit of brotherhood and sisterhood. Whether you are an African American, Hispanic, Native American, Caucasian, Asian American, you are part of this great dream. This is not a black holiday. This is not a sleep-in, vacation, time-off holiday. This is a service holiday, as well as a people's holiday. And it is the young people like yourselves of all races and religions who hold the keys to the fulfillment of his dream. We commemorate his birthday because of his ability to embrace and bring about change and unity of all faiths, as well as love and truth throughout the world. And though we take patriotic pride that Dr. King was an American, on this holiday we must also commemorate the global leader who improved nonviolent liberation. He also inspired us so much so that he is known for his nonviolent approach. Indeed, on this day, programs commencing and commemorating Dr. King's birthday are being seen and celebrated in over 100+ countries. The King holiday celebrates Dr. King's global vision of a world house, a world whose people and nations had triumphed over poverty, racism, war, and violence. The holiday celebrates his vision of solidarity, his insistence that all faiths had a right and something meaningful to offer to contribute to building a community of faith and goodwill. The holiday commemorates America's preeminent advocate of nonviolence, the man who taught by his example that nonviolent action is the most powerful, revolutionary force that social change can have for those who are oppressed in their struggles for liberation. This holiday honors the courage of a man who endured harassment, beatings, and even bombings. We commemorate the man who went to jail over 30 times to achieve freedom for others and who knew he would pay the ultimate price for this leadership. But he kept on marching, he kept on protesting, and he kept on organizing anyway despite this risk. Every King holiday has been considered a national teaching on the values of nonviolence, including unconditional love, tolerance, forgiveness, and reconciliation, which are so desperately needed to unify America. It is a day of intensive education and training in Martin's philosophies and methods of nonviolent social change and conflict reconciliation. The holiday provides unique opportunities to teach young people to fight evil, not people. To get in the habit of asking themselves, what is the most loving way that I can resolve this conflict? On the King holiday, young people learn about the power of unconditional love, even for one's adversaries, as a way to fight injustice and diffuse violent disputes. It is a time to show them the power of forgiveness and the healing process at the interpersonal as well as international levels. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is not only for celebration and remembrance, education, and tribute, but above all, a day of service. All across America, on this holiday, his followers perform services in hospitals, shelters, and prisons, or wherever people in need of help are located. It is a day of volunteering to feed the hungry, rehabilitate housing, tutoring those who cannot read or write, mentoring at-risk youngsters, consoling the brokenhearted, and thousands of other projects for building a beloved community of love. Dr. King once said that we all have to decide whether we will walk in the light of creative altruism or the darkness of destructive selfishness. Life's most persistent and nagging question, he said, is what are you doing for others? He would quote Mark 9:35, the scripture in which Jesus of Nazareth tells James and John, "Whosoever will be great among you shall be your servant. And whosoever among you will be the first shall be the servant of all." And when Martin talked about the end of his mortal life, in his last sermon in February of 1968 at Ebenezer Baptist Church, even then he lifted up the value of service as the hallmark of a full life of fulfillment. I'd like someday to mention on this day that Martin Luther King Jr. tried to give his life serving others, he said. I want you to say on that day that I did try in my life to love and serve humanity. It is called upon you to commemorate this holiday by making your personal commitment to serve humanity with the vibrant spirit of unconditional love that was his greatest strength, and which empowered all of the great victories of his leadership. And with our hearts open to the spirit of unconditional love, we can indeed achieve the beloved community of Martin Luther King's dream. May we who follow Dr. King's pledge to serve humanity, promote his teachings, and carry forward his legacy into the future. 4 things I'd like to leave with all of you is college, education, something that no person can ever take away from you. Something as you are sitting in the halls and reading the books, having to do study hall and learn, is something that I encourage all of you to take advantage of. I encourage you to take advantage of this institution, where it taught me how to study, how to put importance on getting and earning a good grade, how to become a scholar, how to take the next step in order to provide for my family, but also it taught me how to give back. And so I ask of all of you to, and I encourage you to take advantage of the position that you're in now so that you can make not only yourself proud, but your family proud. I also like to reinforce choices. Choices that you make now, they have an impact on your future. Heed counsel. Make your choices as you become an adult. But keep in mind, as you go forward with those choices that you make, sometimes you won't make the right ones. Be able to recognize when that happens, own up to it, redirect, and move forward. I encourage you to never forget Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream. But I ask of you to make your own dreams. For if you're not a dreamer, you have no direction. You need to dream what it is that you wish to become and what you wish to be. Make the path right. Strong work, dedication is important. It is such a pleasure to be in front of you all this morning. I remember sitting in your seats, and I was hopeful when learning that the individual speaker would take respect for my time. I know that you all have this holiday in front of you. Enjoy it, but reflect on some of the words that I have spoken. I do wish to acknowledge the King Center for some of the words of this speech and presentation. But again, thank you so much for the invitation, and a pleasure being here in front of you all today.
Dr. Fowler, we truly appreciate you coming and sharing with us this morning. It's a joy to hear not only the words that you shared, but also some of the time that you spent with us. Dr. Fowler is one of our alums through the years that has truly taken the opportunity that you all have as cadets today to find his path, not only in service to his country, but into the medical field and to do the things that he does every day. We're very proud of you, very proud of your accomplishments, and do very much appreciate you coming this morning. I think it's a great honor for us to have him here this day, and also to remember Dr. King and those things that he stood for. And the thing that always stands out in my mind when we have these assemblies is that Dr. King called us all, no matter who we are, to work together. And that dream is the opportunity for us to do those things that we all can do within our lives. And Dr. Fowler is prime example this morning to you as cadets that he took the opportunities of the faculty and staff working with him when he was here and built upon his education and his opportunities that allowed him to be successful. So again, sir, we're very proud of you as an alumnus and the opportunities that you shared with us, and we appreciate you coming. And I have something I'd like to present you.
I have this picture of the administration and the other buildings here on campus that you walked and had an opportunity to be in. And we want you to take this back and hang it in your office or your home, wherever. Share it with your kids and grandkids as a place that you remember within your life. Thank you very much.
Well, again, Dr. Fowler, I would echo Colonel Lehrman's comments. We very much appreciate your talk. I think it's obvious why this gentleman has risen to the heights that he has in his profession. An outstanding individual, and thanks for all you've done for Wentworth. As we close down today, I want you to remember, I want to say one more thing, and we'll leave. One thing Dr. Martin Luther King continually said: all men are created equal. All men are created equal. By men, it means men, and meant men and women. And I think that's something we need to remember here at Wentworth. We've got a lot of different people, a lot of different cadets from a lot of different places. We've got, what, 12, 15 different countries represented. We've got some of you from all corners of the United States. But all of you are created equal. That doesn't mean you're all going to make the same grades. That doesn't mean you're all going to earn the same amount of money when you get out in the world. It doesn't mean you're all going to get the same number of awards. It doesn't mean you're all going to have all the different honors and everything else. But it does mean that each one of you is no better than anybody else, and nobody is any better than you. And that's what Dr. King taught. We're all created equal. And it's very important, even though maybe we disagree with somebody, or maybe our values and beliefs are a little bit different, we need to respect each other. You might not like everybody on campus, but we all need to respect each other. And that's what the teaching of Dr. Martin Luther King was all about. Regardless of your race, your creed, your color, anything else, everybody is equal. And I think that's a lesson we can learn. So again, thank you for your attendance today. I know you're enjoying your day out of class. I'm enjoying my day out of class also. And thank you again, Dr. Fowler. Thank you very much for all you said.
Center, face! Forward!